ask, in terms of demographics and culture, are we seeing any patterns?
So not in terms of demographics and culture. It seems to be as prevalent in men and women. So it's not predominant one over the other. We see more women in treatment than we see in men, but it appears to be just as common in men. It is much more prevalent in older adults than it is in younger adults. So the prevalence in younger adults is about 2%. The prevalence in adults over 60 is about 7%. So quite an increase. But it does appear to be in existence in all the cultures that we have looked at, although we haven't looked at all cultures extensively. Now, in some places, it's well accommodated. I do research in Costa Rica, and there have been a number of patients or actually research participants that I've worked with who said, yes, I have a hoarding problem, but it's not a problem because I've been able to put it in this bodega in my backyard and it's not in the way. And so it begs the question as to whether they have hoarding disorder because it's not impairing their lives, but there's an ability to accommodate it. When you can't accommodate it, then it would become a problem for that person.
It's a hoarding hobby.
Yeah, it's a hoarding hobby. But this is the interesting thing as we talk about, and also we talk about it with psychopathology and various things. This impaired life experience sort of quality that someone can have schizophrenia, can have bipolar, can have a lot of autism, a lot of difficulties, but they're high functioning or they're functioning successful. So we can see that because there was that interesting show, we quite like it, the American Pickers, and they go out and they find these places and they've got all these millions of things, but there seems to be these very large properties with lots of sort of buildings. So it doesn't necessarily, as you say, interfere with their life, but as they're sort of wandering through these barns full of stuff, I do sit there going, I think you might be a hoarder,
Well, they actually might be. And there was a family that I studied years ago that did that for a living. They definitely had hoarding disorder and some of their homes were impassable, but they actually had a similar kind of a job where they would move homes from one physical location to another. And they would collect all of the detritus and the belongings that had been left behind, and they would bring them to their homes. And actually they had consignment stores. So some of it they would sell in consignment stores, but some of it they would keep. So it was an interesting mix of adaptation and benefit, but clear impairment because their homes were definitely not, or at least partly usable, in particular the patriarch of that family. And I think that speaks to the key, which is that the definition of hoarding disorder, not a hoarding problem, but hoarding disorder is whether it actually causes functional impairment. The person, though, may not actually recognize that they have impairment. It may require an objective observer to recognize that they are at risk for falls, or that they have vermin in their homes, or that their shed is at risk for catching fire because there's so much paper in it. So there is a question as to who determines impairment. That is an empiric question, I think, still.
And I guess if we go back to demographics, if you are wealthy and you have large properties and you can accommodate your hoarding, it's going to be a lot less obvious than someone who is poor and has a small house and doesn't have the room. And so maybe, I don't know, I'm just thinking out loud here, maybe our perception is this is more a low socioeconomic kind of problem rather than a wealthy person's problem. But you said across the board, it's the same problem.
Yeah, that's interesting.
You're right, though, and we did a study actually interviewing clinicians who specialize in hoarding disorder. And some of them actually said, if you're wealthy and you can accommodate your clutter, you do not have hoarding disorder. I disagree with that. I actually think that that's that harm reduction model. If you can negotiate such that the problem that you have is not impairing, that doesn't mean you don't have the disorder. It means you've been able to manage the harm reduction model such that your functioning is as good as it can be. Somebody with fewer resources who's lower socioeconomic status or has less physical space might be more impaired. But that actually speaks a little bit to the creativity of the harm reduction model. I do not argue, contrary to some of my colleagues, that wealthier person does not actually have hoarding disorder, because to me, the fundamental problem is the difficulty in discarding. The clutter is a secondary manifestation of that.
Yeah. Thank you for tuning in to the Science of Psychotherapy. Please like this video, subscribe to our channel, and hit that bell so that we can reach more people and bring you more Science of Psychotherapy. And if you're a mental health professional, check us out at thescienceofpsychotherapy.com.